Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So lots to talk about from this weekend of racing, and we had loads of good races at the likes of Windsor, Taunton, Haydock, Ascot. And we'll start off just mentioning Double Oban was awarded the race at Market Raisin, which was, I think that was like the fourth or fifth winner last week that we had put up the time before. The likes of Phantom of the Points had been beaten and then wins in the week. Double Oban, Dash Gordon, even Outer Belly, who I know we went against and finished second to. We put that one up last time. Very frustrating, all these next time out winners. So there's quite a few this week that I don't want to give up on either going forward. And I will talk about those in this video. But let's move on to the first race that we're going to actually look at is the 1:15 at Windsor, which was the Novices Handicap Chase, in which Herakles Westwood was a very impressive winner. Very impressive, beating a Deafening Silence. And I watched Deafening Silence, obviously, because we were on that horse, and he jumped beautifully. Was given a perfect ride, in my opinion, by Harry Skelton. And Herakles Westwood was far too good. That was just a very, very impressive performance from Herakles Westwood. I think Deafening Silence has probably still run a career best. I think he's ran above his mark. But he's bumped into one that was well ahead of its mark, Herakles Westwood. I can see Herakles Westwood going in again if anything up to about a 130 would not be enough to stop Herakles Westwood, in my opinion, next time out. Similarly, therefore, if Deafening Silence is left alone on 133 or only goes up, say, a pound, I would be interested in Deafening Silence next time out as well. The form of that Herakles Westwood has even been franked the following day. We suggested that Indoor could be the one to take at Ascot on the basis that Herakles Westwood had won twice since after being beaten by Indoor. Indoor did win at Ascot. That form is really strong. This is a really good bit of novice handicap form here in Herakles Westwood, Deafening Silence, Indoor. And you'd have to include Rocking in the Storm in that, who finished second to Indoor. The four of those, it'd be interesting to see their handicap marks tomorrow, what the handicapper does with them. If he doesn't go anything higher than 6th for Herakles Westwood or Indoor, I think they're very, very interesting next time. And if they leave Deafening Silence and Rocking on a Storm alone, or maybe only a pound, I think both of those will be very interesting next time. We'll move on to the 125 at Market Raisin, which was a veterans handicap chase. The disappointing one, without a doubt here, was our nap of the day, unfortunately. Grandads Cottage. He ran no sort of race. He jumped off quite slowly and lost ground very, very quickly. You just have to put a line through that. That is not his running. If he had won in December at Carlisle at 25 to 1, and then come and run here, went off 100 to 30 and pulled up, you could go, okay, he just fluked his win at Carlisle. He didn't. He went off Carlisle. He went off the 100 to 30 favourite. He went up £6 for that. That is not why he got beat Saturday. He didn't get beat because he didn't run to his, he couldn't run off 139. He got beat for another reason. It was such a disappointing effort that clearly there was something amiss, or he just potentially hated the ground. Maybe it was a bit too fast for him. He's one that I'll be giving a chance to next time. If they can find a similar handicap chase, a similar veterans handicap chase, I still want to be interested in Grandads Cottage, because next time we're going to get a better price as well. They're going to see the pulled up last time out. They're going to go, 7s, 8s. If he came into this race or off the back of that pulled up, if you can forgive him that one run that clearly it was so bad that it can't be true, I can see him running much better next time, and hopefully bouncing back in a similar race. Moving on to the 225. Now, this is another horse that I was quite keen on, Panic Attack. There was another one of our horses that we backed last time that we backed again, thankfully, this time, and it did win. She was very impressive. I thought she won a lot easier than the 5 lengths demonstrates. If the handicapper goes 6, 7, maybe 8, I can see her going really close again. And I think she could be interesting, I think she could be interesting in that Does she qualify for that? I'm just having a look. She doesn't. I was going to say the Novice Handicap Chase, but she doesn't qualify for that. Maybe the plate then. You've got to remember, last season, or last year, sorry, it was actually the year before now, 2023, January 2023, she finished 4th, went off 8-1, behind Stage Star, who went on to win the 2.5 Grade 1. That's the right Gino, who went on to win a Coral Gold Cup, or Coral Trophy, formerly the Hennessy, and Unexpected Party, who went on to win a Grand Annual. Finishing 4th was probably a good performance from Panic Attack over that 2.5 mile trip. Now she's got her confidence, and she was very, very impressive at the weekend. Be interesting to see if she runs in the plate off her new mark. I still think she'd be very, very interesting. Again, it's one that we're going to keep an eye out for tomorrow to see what handicap mark Panic Attack is given. Moving on to the Veterans Final, won by Copperhead, who is clearly just banging form, isn't it? He's now 4 wins and 2 seconds in his last 4 runs. We were on Sam Brown, who has been given a great ride, I thought, by Chad Bayman. He kept trying, didn't quite have the speed potentially to go past Copperhead, maybe wanted a bit further, but, you know, he's run his absolute heart out at 13. He's still running really good races. And I personally, I feel there's races that they could still win with Sam Brown. Last season, for example, this time of year, he was running in a Denman in February of last year. Never going to be good enough for that. There is that race at Kempton, the Coral Trophy. I've got one for that I'm really keen on. It would be interesting if they did go there again and put Chad Bayman back on, because claiming 10 last year it ran off 152. He's currently rated 153. I think the handicapper will leave him alone after being beaten in the Veterans. So if he leaves him alone off 153, but Chad takes 10 off, he's effectively running off 143, which would certainly give him a chance in that Coral Trophy at Kempton. There is another one that I'm even more keen on for that race, though, and we will talk about him in a minute. But don't give up on Sam Brown, even at 13. There's certainly a few races that he could be aimed at, potentially even the returning for the Veterans races at the likes of Ascot, and then going to Aintree potentially for that 3 mile handicap that they do often run well in. I think he's won it before, hasn't he? Just having a look. Yes, he won it in 2022, and then in 2024 he was finishing 2nd. That's probably where we're going to see him next, I imagine. Go to Aintree. Don't worry about Cheltenham. Go straight to Aintree. And I think he would go well at Aintree. There's nothing else from that race. Moving on to the 2.5 mile race at Windsor over hurdles. Langadam was beaten out of sight. Again, beaten 45 lengths. But in January, he's now been beaten 31, 35. February, let's look at his form, January, February. And I don't disagree with Dan Skelton. I think he just doesn't run well in these types of races. So, January and February races only. Beaten 1.5 lengths. That was a good run. Beaten 6.5 lengths off a mark of 131. Beaten 10 lengths, finished 6th of 6. Beaten 31 lengths, finished 14th of 19. And now beaten 28 lengths and 45 lengths, 5th of 6 and 5th of 5. He doesn't run well in those months. That is actually true, and it's been going on for a couple of years. There's no way that he'll be running in a Coral Cup. He's not going to drop in a handicap. The handicapper might drop him a couple of pounds for that run. He might go 158. That's still not going to be enough to get him in the Coral Cup with a chance. 158 would still be £17 higher than when winning it last year. People that are still going, oh, it could be interesting for the Coral Cup, you are bonkers, to be honest. He's not going to be running in that. He's going to be running in the Stayers Hurdle. Now, I don't mind him in the Stayers Hurdle either, though. I thought his effort at Aintree was a good effort. His effort at Sandown was a good effort in April of last year. They were both very good efforts, behind Imperial Pass, and Bob Ollinger, I think, also got involved. It's whether he truly stays 3 mile. That would be the only concern. He probably wouldn't be my stayers hurdle selection unless you can get really big odds about him. Teahupoo is still the one to beat there. But I do totally expect Lankadan to bounce back next time out in the stayers hurdle. I think he'll run a much better race. In terms of everything else, Blue King Daru just quickened too early and it turned into a bit of a stamina race. That didn't suit him. Iberica Lord just isn't good enough for this type of race. Needs to go back over fences. It went wrong over fences, but send him back now. You're not good enough to win anything over hurdles either. And the other two, you know, they might be winning these types of races, but as soon as they come up against proper Grade 1 horses, I think they'll be finding that they are too good for them. Moving on to Windsor. I think I spotted one here. And I have mentioned this horse before. It is actually in our horses to follow, and so far this season it has been quite moderate. But go back and watch the performance of Go Dante. I even don't feel that this in running low of 14 is low enough. The horse was travelling really well at the back of the field under James Bowen. Never really picked up, but that does mean the horse is now has now been beaten comfortably again off a mark of 130. The handicap has got to drop Go Dante. Well, last season, when he finished third in the Betfair Hurdle behind Iberico Lord and Loda Sud, he was running off a mark of 129. I can see him being 128, 127 after tomorrow. That would put him in with a great chance in the Betfair Hurdle. I imagine he's going to get an entry. Similarly, he then went on to win the Imperial Cup off a mark of 129. Even that's a race that's worth targeting. I feel that Go Dante could be very interesting in his next 2 runs, potentially at Newbury and Sandown. He's going to be down to a mark that he can certainly get involved off. And I thought he travelled well enough at Windsor to demonstrate or to suggest that his mark isn't beyond him. The race, the way it just panned out, didn't quite work. So definitely keep an eye out for Go Dante going forward with those 2 races that I've just mentioned in mind. Moving on to the 408, the Handicap Chase won by Hasthing. Very impressive again. I really believe that the O'Neill team knew that they would win that and were very confident they would win that. And that is why they didn't send Petit Tonnerre there. Petit Tonnerre is definitely a horse to keep an eye out for. As soon as it goes over fences in a handicap, over 2.5 mile plus. 2.5 mile, 2 mile 5, 2 mile 6, that would be perfect. That's where we need to see Petit Tonnerre, you know, as soon as possible, really. I think he will take all of the beating. And I think they knew that Hasthing was going to take all of the beating at Windsor, and that's why they never entered Petit Tonnerre. 45 at Haydock, this came to Saturday now, and there was a really flat performance from Pembroke. Massively disappointing. Well beaten 32 lengths, 8 of 8. Just looks... something's not working, is it? Not working with this horse. We've got to remember, this horse went off 9-2 favourite for a county hurdle of a mark of 136 in 2023. This year, he's now been beaten off 135, 134, 132, 130. Never looked like getting involved. In actual fact, his last 6 runs now, he's been beaten 19 lengths, 33 lengths, 11 lengths, 24 lengths, 13.5 lengths, 32 lengths. He's beaten he's beaten 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rivals out of what? 16, 20, about 35. Yeah, that's just not good enough. And that is a really disappointing effort. You can see that he was one of only 2 that didn't shorten in the run. It was a really, really poor performance. I think they've got to do something radical with him. Not radical, but they've got to change something. They've got to mix something. Send him over 3 miles. See if he just doesn't have the speed now to keep up. Send him over 3 miles and that might work out perfectly, and then he might start winning races. He is well handicapped on his Novice Hurdles day. It's all down to whether they can find him a race that he can run well at. And yeah, I'd be tempted to go back over 3 mile now. We've got to remember that he went off 9-4 co-favourite for a maiden point-to-point. Founder 50 was winning that race. He was 5 lengths second when he fell at the last, behind Founder 50. That was over 3 mile. They've got to go back over 3 mile for Pembroke. Founder 50's rated 162 over fences and 142 over hurdles. I mean, that looks obvious to me. Send Pembroke back over 3 mile and see if he can kind of come back to a bit of form. We'll talk about the 105 briefly at Ascot, which was won by Indoor, who we suggested that form with Herakles Westwood is very good form. With that in mind, keep an eye out for Montregarde, who finished third, went off the 13-8 favourite that day, hasn't been seen since. Keep an eye out for where they end up with that 6-year-old. He's probably one to keep on side. But the horse that we definitely want to talk about here is Kitty's Light. Finished 5th. Disappointing. Nope, not for me. Now well beaten off 135. The handicapper's going to drop the horse again. He's going to go down. I reckon they'll drop him £3 for that, down to 132. So what does 132 mean? It means he'll therefore be running off the exact, if he goes down to 132, he'll be running off the exact same mark as when winning this Eider Chase in Newcastle in 2023. And we can see that that was the start of winning 3 consecutive races, which was the Eider Chase, the Scottish National, and the Bet365 Gold Cup. They were over 4 mile 1, 4 mile, and 3.5 mile. His 2 recent efforts at Kempton and Ascot have been over 3 mile. He doesn't have the speed for 3 mile. Even more so now as he is getting older. He is now 9 years old. As soon as he goes back up in trip, that's when we want to be interested in him, and I'm sure that the Eider Chase, I would imagine, is going to be the target. I think they're going to do the exact same 3 races as what they won here. Eider Chase, Scottish National, Bet365 Gold Cup. I think he's absolutely thrown in. Moving on to the 120, where we had Thanksforthehelp, who ran a nice race. He finished 3rd. Was comfortably beaten by Solar System and I Am Max. He actually came there. I thought he was coming there to win the race when he joined I Am Max. Just outpaced. Yes, he lost his shoe. I don't feel that was the reason why he lost. I think he needs to go back up in trip. And I feel he needs to go... I'd be tempted to send him over fences now. March 2023, he went off the 100-30 favourite for the Temps final at the Cheltenham Festival when rated 128. He got beat Saturday. He got beat off 118. Yes, he needs further. He needs that 3 mile, but he also probably needs a fence now. He's 8 years old. Send him over fences. I think they could make... He looks a really big horse. And I think the fences will bring out a bit more improvement in Thanksforthehelp. Moving on to the Grade 2, the Mayor's Hurdle at Ascot, won by Take No Chances, who we had highlighted after it got beat earlier this season. Just trying to find it on my other screen. Finished 3rd behind Josh the Boss. I said, yeah, really like her. I think she's very nicely handicapped off 136. She can win races off 136. They then went for a listed race, didn't make use of her handicap mark. They then finished 5th in the Fighting 5th, 3rd in a handicap off only a pound higher mark. She definitely disappointed that day when behind Woodhoo and Joyous. And then bounced back Saturday, I keep saying yesterday. Bounced back on Saturday, beating Cargès. Now, Cargès was officially £3 well in with Take No Chances, in the fact that she was rated rated £2 higher, and was getting £1 from Take No Chances. Was officially rated £3 higher and was giving £3. No, 9 was £6 well in with Betty. So it's £3 with Take No Chances and £6 with Ubetti. They may go up in the handicap. Cargès, for me, shouldn't. I think she'll be left on 141. And I think that then throws a conundrum to Willie Mullins. If the horse is left on 141, does she not become very interesting for the county hurdle? Where is she? She's down here at 14s and 12s, 10s in places. I think she's very interesting, therefore, in the county hurdle. Now, yes, she has an entry also in the mayor's hurdle, but they've got Jade de Grugy for that. She was last seen beating Spindleberry at Fairyhouse in good style in a Grade 1 with Jatara, A Penny 100, Fun, Pink in the Park, Pagan, Iris Emery, Bioluminescence, Judith Selene, all behind. The only time that Jade de Grugy got beat last year was when she finished 4th to Golden Ace, Brighter Days Ahead, or Birdie or Bust. I'm just going to double check to see if she's okay. So reading a report on Jade de Grugy, she is okay, and they are trying to get her back. I just wonder whether she might end up in the mayor's hurdle, and Cargès could end up running in the county hurdle. If Cargès ran in the county hurdle off that mark of 141, that I don't think the handicapper will move tomorrow. We won't actually find out until she's got another entry in a race in the UK. I honestly think she could go off like ridiculously short, 5-2, 2-1 favourite for a county hurdle. I don't think that was the worst run for Cargès. It gives her plenty of... It just opens up a few more opportunities, in my opinion. The county hurdle being one of those. The only 2 horses she got beat by 3 horses last year. Carla Conti on her return. She then completely reversed that form at Leopardstown when beating Stormheart, Marisborough at Bunting and Carla Conti in a Grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival. She then got beat by Marisborough at Cheltenham when clear of Salva and Nürburgring. Also back in 6th that day was Salvatore Monday. And then she got beat by Sergino. But they were well clear of Caliph de Burley. Caliph de Burley, now over fences, is rated 151. Cargès' 141 is definitely a nice handicap mark. I think she could definitely win I think she would win the county hurdle if she ran there. It's all about whether they go there or the mares with her. And that could come down to how quickly Jade de Grugy gets back and whether they're able to get a run into her before the Cheltenham Festival. Moving on to the 2:15 at Ascot, which was won by Teresita, beating Hitman and Phlegmatics. So the 2 that I'm taking out of the race. First one is Bad. I thought he was loving it out front. With the blinkers on, he was really enjoying himself when, unfortunately, coming down about, 5 from home? Fell at the 13th. I think there was still loads more to come from him. Hadn't given his running at all. I was really disappointed with that. Definitely one to keep an eye out for. The handicap won't change his mark. He was actually running from out of the handicap that day as well. He was running off a mark of 130. He's only rated 125. They can find a race that he can drop back into that he's running off his correct mark. I think he'll take all of the beating with the blinkers on. Second horse that we definitely want to take out the race is Phlegmatic, who has ran his first good run, in my opinion, for a little while. Off a mark of 132 with Tristan taking 3 off. I think the handicapper leaves this horse alone because he was beaten far enough in the end by Teresita and Hitman. Now, off 132, they can go for this race here, the Coral Trophy, at the end of February. It's 85 grand to win it. In 2024, they finished 4th, running off a mark of 140. He's rated 132 now. He was only beaten 2.5 lengths. And I think they kind of got it wrong because they went and won a race in January at Kempton, which pushed him up those £3. If he'd taken that £3 off, he probably would have won at Kempton. So that was off 137. I say he could have won it off 137. In 2023, he was second behind Our Power by a neck, comfortably beating that day Frodon, who was back in third. So that was off 135. He was beating a neck. 132, he looked absolutely thrown in for this race. If that handicapper leaves him alone, even if he pushes him up £1 or £2, I'm not too worried. this will be the one that I'll be, I'll be all over Phlegmatic for this Coral Trophy at Kempton in February. I thought it was a really good effort at Ascot, considering he hadn't run particularly well in some of his other races at Ascot. This was kind of his first real performance, I felt, this season. Demonstrated to me that he's in good form, and he is ready for that race at Kempton in February. Moving on to the Peter Marsh, Trelawn disappointed here, as did Royal Pagaille, a couple of them that you was expecting a lot better of. Both disappointed, 5-2 and 11-4. Both were really, really poor. Trelawn, I thought, jumped really just as bad as Royal Pagaille. All the attention was on Royal Pagaille because he'd obviously looking for a three-timer in this race. Trelawn also kept jumping. I think the very first fence he went right through. He hit 3 or 4 others. It was a very poor performance from Trelawn. I feel the handicapper might drop him for that because he's been beaten by lower rated horses. I think the handicap is going to go, yep, we will drop you in the handicap. I think he might drop him back to 150. 150 would only be £6 higher than when he ran in the Ultima, and I really liked him for the Ultima at Cheltenham. I would be giving him another chance in the Ultima off the back of that. That's where I would go with Trelawn. Yes, he's now higher in the handicap. They can do that though. Horses can go off favourite or second favourite or close to favourite for a race. It not work one year. They come back the following year, even off higher marks, and demonstrate that that was just a blip. Yeah, I want to give him another chance. His jumping did let him down. That was the only concern, especially considering he fell at Cheltenham last year. Did he fall at the first last year? In rear. Fell at the second. Not fluent first, fell at the second. He definitely took a little bit of warming up, even at Haydock. I thought his jumping was really slow early, and as I said, he completely went through the first, and nobody really spotted that. Yeah, Trelawn for the Ultima could be interesting if he turns up there. He's one that I will be keeping an eye out for. Moving on to the 250, I was gutted here, to be honest. We had Aston Martini at 16s, ran a huge race, only went down by a length and 3/4 to Outer Belly, who was our previous selection. Really frustrating that day. I think Freddie thought he was going to win it. He even looked as he come to the last, like, oh wow, who's that coming on my right hand side? And it was Outer Belly. He couldn't quite keep up with Outer Belly, but I think Outer Belly he was expected to go well. His handicap was nice. He'd off 132. Got to remember he went off just 5-1 for a Betfair Hurdle off 132. So the handicap mark wasn't the issue for that horse. And his comeback at Doncaster was he'd just made a couple of mistakes. He got it all together. Aston Martini has bumped into one. Does that get them up high enough to run in the Martin Pipe? That would be where I think we might see Aston Martini. Wherever Aston Martini runs next, I'll probably be backing him again. If it's backing her again. If it's a handicap. If it's a mare's handicap, even more so. Unless something like Cargès was in against her for some reason. But yeah, if there's a handicap that they can get Aston Martini in between now and Cheltenham, they might be really trying, I think, to try and win it, to get in the Martin Pipe at the Cheltenham Festival with Freddie on. I think Freddie might get the ride for the next couple of rides now, or couple of races for Aston Martini. And I don't want to give up on her at all. I thought that was a very good effort. Moving on to the 305 at Haydock. Now, this is a bit of a... Actually, I've just missed a couple of horses. I need to go back. Doddiethegreat. Doddiethegreat pulled up at Cheltenham, pulled up at Ascot. Has he demonstrated yet that he stays his 2.5 mile trip? His 2.5 mile efforts, he's finished 12 of 21 in a Coral Cup, beaten 18 lengths. He's finished 7th of 14, beaten 23 lengths at Ayr. 5th of 7, beaten 21 lengths at Kempton. Pulled up at Kempton, obviously you can ignore that run 2 runs ago because they pulled him up after it all went wrong at the start. And then pulled up again. He's not demonstrating for me that he wants this 2.5 mile trip. beaten 18, 23, 21, pulled up. Go back to 2 Mile with him. Go back to 2 Mile and his form is good. He won a couple of races. He got beat by Grandads, who was winning that day off 125. Grandads won off 125. Finished third in a Bet for Hurdle for 129. Won a Bet Imperial Cup of 129. So the horse who beat Doddiethegreat over 2 Mile won an Imperial Cup off a £4 higher mark. Nothing wrong with that. And then, as I said, went to Newbury for the Bet for Hurdle. Finished 4th behind the subsequent graded horse Iberica Lodesud, who was clearly well handicapped that day. It just got beat by another very well handicapped horse. And Grandads, who went on to win the Imperial Cup. 5th was Favor, who went on to finish 2nd in the Imperial Cup. 6th was Knickerbocker Glory, who has come out and won this year at Sandown off a £5 lower mark, and since finished 3rd in the Fitzdares Sovereign Handicap Hurdle at Windsor off 139, a £2 higher mark. The 7th horse, Our Champ, has come out and won. Move It Like Minnie finished 3rd on Saturday. Outerbelly, who was 14th, went on to win on Saturday. It was a really, really good performance, finishing 4th by Doddiethegreat in the Bet for Hurdle. That came off a mark of 132. If he goes there, I think he's going to be rated 127. I think the handicapper might drop him. He might even drop him more than that. He might drop him 3 or 4 for that effort at Ascot. If he turned up in a Betfair Hurdle, or I think it's going to be called the William Hill Hurdle this year. If he turns up in that, off, say, 127, a £5 lower mark than when finishing 4th, he would have to have a big chance, wouldn't he? So yeah, keep an eye out for Doddiethegreat back over 2 Mile. Now we'll move on to the 3 Mile Stayers Series Handicap. Bold Endeavour was really disappointing again. Pulled up under Brian Hughes. Mrs. Morgan hasn't got the horse going yet. I do wonder whether the horse wants better going. 2 disappointing efforts on for pulled up, but previously had finished 7th of 8, albeit beaten 54 lengths. But at least that came on good ground at Aintree, where the horse maybe needed the run, hadn't run for 182 days. Last year, or last season, the horse had some nice form, finishing 2nd to White Rhino on the new course, off a mark of 142. Then went to the Potemps final, finished 4th, beaten 3 3/4 lengths off a mark of 143. Currently rated 136. He's going to be dropped again. He's going to go down £3 or £4 for that. He could be running off like 133. Where do you go with Bold Endeavour? I think they've got to try those 2 races that they ran so well in previously. The new course at Cheltenham does look like it suits. He's finished 2nd in a Kingston Stud Handicap in April 2023. 2nd in a City Post Handicap in December 2023. And then 4th in March 2024. They came off marks of 139, 142 and 143. Surely you've got to go back for that race in April that they finished second in April 2023 off what he could be, what did I say, go down 133 off a £6 lower mark. He finished 2nd in it in 2023, go there in 2025 off a £6 lower mark. He got beat by Williston that day. Williston then went on to win at Haydock the next time, winning the Potemps Network Long Distance Handicap Hurdle, beating Bold Endeavour again. But Williston had gone up, I don't know what he'd gone up for that, 5. Just having a look, bear with me. 7. Williston had gone up, just check that. No, he'd gone up 3, sorry. So he got beat by a subsequent feature handicap winner who was £3 well in, and he then won again. I mean, that's got to be where you go with Bold Endeavour for that Cheltenham race on the new course in April 2025. 2 more to go, I think. Actually, there's a few more to go. I'm just going to talk about one race where I've got a few. Might I, really disappointing at Taunton. I thought Kieran O'Shea got it wrong. didn't give that the best of rides, went round the outside, which first of all meant it felt like further for the horse. He doesn't stay much further, but also going round Taunton, it was so tight, and at one point he went into the bend level with, I think he was level with Paso came out about 6 lengths down. He'd lost all that ground just going around a bend. He rallied a little bit in the running once he got straight, and I just think that was a really poor ride. Handicapper might drop him for that. Wherever he goes next, look at 2.5 mile races. Similar level of race, don't need to be going up in quality. But yeah, I think he will run a nice race again next time, or a better race next time, over that 2.5 mile trip. I don't really want to see him at Aintree. I think that's too competitive. Don't want to see him at Cheltenham. I think that's too competitive. There are definitely races for Might Eye still to be won, though. And finally, the last race I'm going to talk about is the 155 at Windsor, which I thought there was a few to take out of this race. Starting with Sans Bruit, who was given a completely different ride by Harry Cobden. Harry decided to drop out the back and see if they could weave their way through late on. Didn't quite work. Finished 5th. Got beat by 20 lengths. Granted, Matata made 10 of those himself. If you take the winner out, they all finish a lot closer. Now, they're going to revert to type next time, I'm sure. They're going to go forward. I think he might drop in the handicap. I think he might drop a couple of pounds for that. Maybe down to like 136. If he goes to 136, that would mean he was running off a £6 higher mark than when winning at Aintree in April 2024. So last year, when they beat Saint-Ouen, Paf de Roux, May and Maya, Triple Trade, Dancing on My Own, Heltenham. A really good race. That's where they're going to be aiming him again. And what do they do there? You put Bryony on board, you go forward, you make all the running. I think they would take all of the beating back at Aintree. Another horse that you definitely want to be looking out for from this race, in my opinion, is probably Editeur de Gite. I think the horse is going to be dropped significantly in the handicap again. He's going to go down to 140. He's going to get another 5 off for that, I reckon. Down to 140. He got pestered again for that lead. As soon as they can get a race where they're able to dictate, I think they're going to be able to. They're going to get home. He got pestered by Arctic Brazil for Henry de Bromhead, and that horse finishes 7th. As soon as he's left alone in front, I think he's going to be able to bounce back, Editeur de Gite, even at 11 years old. I still like him for the Grand Annual. I'll still be interested. He's going to be a massive price for that, for the Grand Annual. But he's got Cheltenham form. He was 4th in the Grand Annual for 153. I reckon he's going to be rated 140 now. Suddenly starts to get very interesting, Editeur de Gite. Next one I want to talk about here is Crebilly, who finished 3rd over 2 mile. He wants 2.5. That'll put him spot on, I'm sure, for the plate at the Cheltenham Festival. Handicapper shouldn't move him. He got beat by 13 lengths. Surely comes back for the plate, and I imagine he's going to go off a very short price for that. He's going to be less. He's going to be single figures for sure for the plate. So I almost want 3 there. Sans Bruit to the Aintree race, Crebilly to the plate, and Editeur de Gite to the Grand Annual. So yeah, there's a few horses. Well, that's quite a long video talking about some of the horses that are interested going forward. Deafening Silence, yeah. Grandads Cottage, forgive that run. Panic Attack can certainly go well if the handicapper doesn't put him up too much. Langadam will run much better in the stayers. I don't know whether he can win it. Keep an eye out for Godante in the Imperial Cup. Petit Tonnerre I want to keep an eye out for. Pembroke if he goes up to 3 mile. Kitty's Light when he goes up to 4 mile. Bad back over fences next time out, maybe drops in class. Phlegmatic to Kempton. Trelawney could end up in the Ultima now. Aston Martini next time out with the aim of getting into the Martin Pipe. Bold Endeavour has to go for the new course handicap at Cheltenham in April. Might Eye will run much better next time, I'm sure. And finally, as I've just mentioned, Crebilly to the plate, Editeur de Gite to the Grand Annual, and Sans Bruit to Aintree.